Hey there, listener. Welcome to the Deep Share Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Rouse, and for the last couple of decades, I've slowly been opening my eyes to a very different world than the one I grew up hearing about. And the more conversations I have with interesting people, the more mystifying this world becomes. So without further ado, let's get deep.
We've got science to celebrate! Demons bliss out! After what, baby? Come on!
There is rebellion in the wind. It will crush.
Everything I've said is true. It's real.
Dinosaur fossils? God put those here to test our faith.
A damn lie. I saw them with my own eye.
Did IQs just drop sharply while I was away?
We did illusions, man! None of it is true!
I'm not insane.
This is mass madness, you maniacs! In God's name, you people are the real thing! We are the illusion!
All right, welcome back to a very special episode of the Deep Share, a part two, a number two, episode 2 of Kill the Narrative. That's what we're going to call it. Brandy coined it on accident, on a whim, and it has stuck. So we have Brandy with us again, and this time returning guest of the Deep Share, Scott White. How's it going, man?
Killing it.
Good.
Doing good.
So I wanted to kind of turn this into a frequent series, kill the narrative, talk about what's happening in the UFO community. What are all the special little news bulletins that are getting everybody wet in that community? And lately it's all I've been seeing is this intelligence office logo that has they've added not only a saucer shaped UFO, but also, I believe, a TR-3B triangle-shaped craft that's like dodging everything up ahead. Have you guys seen this? Oh, man. Okay. So for those, I'm going to share this. Yeah. Did you see this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's great. So you got the saucer and then whatever this is supposed to be. Unless that's like a stealth fighter.
It's a Star Destroyer.
Yeah, it actually looks more like a Star Destroyer than a TR-3B anyway.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think of this? What do you think the intention behind this is? This is literally the United States Intelligence Office, and this is now their logo. So we all know that UFOs have become public. We all know that the government's kind of like vaguely interested here and there. But from a public view, like this to me would seem kind of shocking. Like, whoa, wait a minute. They're taking it that seriously. I'm kind of like picturing like an old curmudgeon guy, like just looking at this going, wait a minute, my government's doing what now? Like, what do you guys think of this?
I think it's ridiculous. Well, I think it's ridiculous because you're right. The people who don't look at it are going to be like, oh my God, it's really going on. And then the people who know about it are like, they're making fun of us, aren't they?
Yeah. And then there's so much of the community right now. Go ahead, Scott.
It's just straight up saucer hanging out down there at the bottom by Brazil.
Yeah, man.
It's great.
It's,
drones and planes and fighter jets. Wonderful.
But again, I mean, they can also just claim, or they can put it out there like, you see, those are our planes. Those are our saucers.
Boom. Ooh, I love that.
So like there's this weird like tongue-in-cheek kind of putting it out there and not putting it out there at the same time. So the CDC did that whole thing about zombie apocalypses have valuable takeaways because emergencies, be prepared, bop, 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 bop.
Right. Yeah.
And now there's this, which is an official patch, right? Logo. And it's got straight up like 1950s saucers on it. So
yeah, 50s, 1950s throwback. Yeah,
like straight up 2 plates put together, like two basically with a little bump on top. Now, granted,
a little teacup.
No disrespect. It's like that is still the model that, if you're buying into the narrative that these are aliens or whatever, then this is what they still look like. And that's one of the whole points of the community, right? Like, well, this technology hasn't changed in 70 plus years. And so it's like a timeless, and yeah, to me, it's Brandy, you hit it right on the head. To me, it feels like, yeah, these are our ships. So we're technically telling you that it's us, that it's ours.
I wonder if they're going to put those on the back of their little cars, like those stick figure people.
I wonder if we're going to start seeing this on a bunch of people's bumper stickers, and you can just start identifying the people that are buying into this side of the narrative. And then you'll know, you can just start taking bets. Are they wearing a mask? They're still wearing a mask. They're alone in their car.
Well, and you know what? UFO Twitter, there's your logo.
Yeah, there you go. That's perfect. Oh man. And it's such a central problem, right? Like, you're talking about a community that was once like a very outcasted, rebellious part of any community, the UFO community. And now it's like an entirely, like a very specific strong arm of this whole narrative that's going on, included with everything that's been happening for the past years. It's gone along right like adjacent to the whole pandemic and everything like that. It's just been happening, slow roll, and it's good. They're going to collide eventually. These pathways into chaos that we've been taken down, they're all going to collide into some final answer, it seems. What do you guys think of that?
Yes, a final car crash answer.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be just a big mess. There's gonna be fluids and street sweeping involved. It's gonna be a big one. Because
Randy Quaid and everything.
Yeah. Oh, there's gonna be
Damn.
shit all over the place, dude. So I mean, like, we have the official story of know that there's nothing out there for like 70 years, and now they're saying, okay, there's things out there and we don't know what it is. It's not ours. It's not theirs. We don't know what it is. Like, well, what's your fucking educated guess? Like, what's your best shot? Nothing,
Right.
Well, I mean, I think if they even admitted what it is, then they'd have to admit to us that we can create it. And they're
That's
like,
true.
nah, we can't do that shit. You know what these damn people would do? Do you see what these people do to themselves? If they could put stuff with their minds in the sky, if they knew that they could create, really, what would happen?
I mean, that's almost like defensible, right? I mean, I could kind of understand where they're coming from. This is kind of along the same lines as like the sacred oaths and everything of secret societies. Like the idea of the adepts was to hold the knowledge because it was too much to bear on the masses and things like that, which it's like kind of false nobility. But at the same time, people in large groups
have a tendency to create things.
yeah. What kind of that is an interesting angle to take on it, like, because I always maintain that the one quote that they always perpetuate, the whole "it's stranger than any of you think it is," that whole idea, that's like perpetuated throughout the decades from any sort of little leaks here and there, other than the obvious, like there's 18 floors of 17 different species of aliens. Like, other than that, you get a lot of like these, if it's anybody credible, it's very vague, but it's like, it's very, I don't know, it's stranger than I couldn't even put it into words if I were to tell the public, things like that kind of shit. It's so central to what it really is, because it has nothing to really do with like, interplanetary species, I don't think. But I don't know. Did we go over that in the first episode? I don't want to sound like a broken record, but man, it really is the most important point to get about this, is that, these are our ships. This is something that we're doing. Do you think it's reverse engineering? Like, what is your take? Like, Scott, you weren't on the first episode. Let's take you and like get a little bit more of what you feel about the topic specifically.
Shit. Well, I like a bunch of different flavors. I like the really old technology that's been here for a long time angle. I like the reverse engineering. I like the somewhere in between, like looking at the old stuff and looking at this stuff, and then cloistered knowledge, which is is saying that we're only 2,000 years old after some dude died, as a way to gauge where we are, and the aeons is an interesting decision too. So,
a good point.
when we don't know how old we actually are. I mean, we can go back and do carbon radio dating and stuff, which gives us a little bit more of an accurate depiction. But
But then we find
knows?
human remains that are much older, and tools
Yeah,
and things like
and
that.
varying sizes of human remains and weird skulls in different countries, and now this stuff that I'm hearing about the Egyptology deities having American counterparts here in the
Oh, I didn't hear
Well,
this.
there's a reason for that.
Oh God, please go on, both of you.
Yeah,
I'd love to
let's
hear
get
that. I'm
weird.
not.
All right.
Maybe I have, maybe I haven't. I don't know. It doesn't sound familiar the way you said it. So
Go ahead.
Well,
Oh,
we'll go with if Hebrew is the original language. Hebrew is the language of the English language, Hebrew of the demons. The Egyptian deities are nothing more than combinations of the periodic table. You put all together their names, like Horus is like hydrogen, oxygen, I forgot what the RU was, and sulfur. They're all just a big cookbook. Okay, so then you have the Enochian text. My theory, honestly, is those Enochian texts are the same as the shadow language of the English and Hebrew. The Enochian texts are the shadow of our current periodic tables. They are the actual angelic elements, where our current periodic is kind of like the English, the demonic side. So it would make sense that they say, okay, we have these American gods that are the mirror versions of these so-called deities over here. It makes sense, because where there's light, you have to have a shadow. So who's going to be the shadow?
Wow, that's really intense. I didn't know that about the periodic table and the Egyptian pharaohs. Is that what you said?
Yeah, because you have one, you can just name one deity over there, and they've got like 30 different forms, which is like how they go back to the secret societies. If you want to code something, that's a real good way to code it. Say, hey, it's 30 different people, when it's not. It's one person.
Yeah.
But how
an
long
idea.
Right. And how long are you it's not even a person at that. Yeah, it's just a bunch of combinations of elements they used to create, whatever it was, the alchemy they used in order to prolong life, to heal life, but they don't want you to know that. So they're going to say, no, it's a person, and you can never achieve such godliness. That's why we made it a god. And it's like, no, it's a cookbook. We figured this out. And they're like, well, we got to split this up now. We got to make it so many different flavors, they'll never figure it out.
Yeah, definitely. Well, this is interesting because we have the Sumerian kings list that apparently aligns in a way with the diatonic G scale. And I've mentioned this before on a show, but the problem is I don't know what the fuck that means.
It sounds like a badass weed strain is what it sounds like.
I'm gonna look it up right now. We're gonna dig this out together. So yeah, Sumerian.
So
go ahead, Scott.
Diatonic would be 2, right? Because like pent would be 5. So
right, and we already know there, because they're making it a 2, that there's automatically a 3, but they want to divide it. So we got some divisive stuff coming up.
All right. So
is it going to be like 5 notes instead of 7 or something?
All right.
Yeah. And on a whole nother topic, Scott, I have that same that same knife behind you.
Oh, which one? This guy over here?
Yeah, machete.
Nice.
It's up there on my TV. I got the same one.
The old Borsman's knife. Yeah.
Yeah, I got it from my grandfather.
All right. Here we go. So there's long been an issue with the protracted length of reign for the Sumerian kings. Any normal human reigning for 28,000 years is clearly absurd. However, the absurdity may be based on a relatively simple calculation. What became evident was a correlation in the regnal lengths between the 432 Hertz scale and the diatonic G scale factor 9. The kingships may have been counted in days versus years. These figures began to converge into a sensible understanding. It was believed that the kings were of celestial origin, and this simple idea would appear to show that premise precisely. The length of so it goes into all this math about it, or something. All lengths of reign prior to the flood event reduced to Pythagorean nines, with the exception of En-men-dur-ana of 21,000 years, 3, and Ubar Tutu of 18,000. So it goes on and it talks about this diatonic G scale correlation and how you can get it through the Sumerian kings list and the ages of the kings.
So are they saying that instead of saying that they're like these actual physical kings, are they saying that this is the number of years that this star was visible, maybe?
So when I hear we need someone smarter than us, I guess, I don't know, but like 432 hertz, that automatically, we're thinking frequency here. So is this like kind of the same shit that like Tesla would encode to us?
I have
Like,
no idea, dude. Like uniform's so far out of my wheelbox.
This is the issue here, though, because you see how they say the 360 days, which we already know that they have messed that up because they went ahead through some 5 days extra in here. So we're going to have to say, okay, whose calendar is it going off of? And then we already know that a celestial measure and our measure is two different things, because we don't have the same, like, celestials don't really have years. They're outside of time, really. So
if we're talking about entities, yeah. But if we're talking about humans just figuring out some cool frequency shit to like heal, or, what would it be passing down? It's probably encoded in the story, but it's almost like you kind of have to figure it out and then read the story and go, oh, it's like seeing The Sixth Sense for the second time.
But for them to even bring that topic up at the top, they're saying celestial bodies. Sounds like they're referring to stars in the orbits, because that's what it said, equate to celestial portions, 72 years.
When we take 28,800 years divided by 360 days, we get 80 years. Using the simple reduction formula of A plus 360 equals C, we get the true product. So it says these figures may not seem important, but when we think of Tesla's 3, 6, and 9 as a key to the universe, we have energy, frequency, and vibration. These numbers hint at possible celestial disturbances in the flow of energy and frequency as witnessed by the sacred geometry of the cosmos.
Right. And again, that goes back to whose math it goes off of, because not everybody uses the same base.
Right. Yeah, that's a frequent problem I'm running into in like a lot of our systems of answering questions. It's like, even though we know that Ancestry and other companies like that are clearly like fronts for collecting DNA and shit like that, but the answers that were given from those companies, it's like, okay, but whose bullshit line of history are we basing these migrations off of? Like, I know a lot of I know a lot of deep genealogy work is done. I know it exists. I know it's, probably real, right? But like, just like, I think that even when the genealogist gets his like mathematical and scientific answers, when those are like put in the wash and turned into a story about history and where people were with those bloodlines and with those types of blood and this and that, I think that's where it's like, well, which fucking history are we thinking about? Because most of it's all kind of hidden and skewed and twisted anyway, right? So yeah, we have these same people basically convincing most of the world now that we are in the presence of aliens from outer space. So do we, where, like, what do you think's coming?
You know what? I just thought about this too. When they're saying, okay, when they do a passing down, like of kingships, queenships and stuff, and they're passing it from, they named the child the same name, and they will call it like the born again or the reborn, whatever.
Yes.
They could say that this king ruled for however X many years. Okay, his name ruled. It doesn't mean he physically ruled. It just means his
Absolutely.
bloodline was in control this many years.
I like that. And I think it's important to tie it into human story. Like it's not just these esoteric understanding of like the G scale or whatever and the periodic table. In some ways, I almost feel like it's both. It's probably part of history, but also symbolically, it's the same. You know what I mean? It's layered
Yeah.
in that fractal way, I guess. So yeah, what have you guys been looking into lately? Other than houses.
I know Scott's just like, well,
Winter's coming, man. I just got my wood stove up and running for the house, so I'm pretty stoked about that.
Nice, dude. That's awesome,
Yeah,
man.
I had 3 or 4 cords of wood out there turning into mulch, and so now it's going to turn into some oil credits. I don't have to pay for oil for a while.
That's going to be great. That's
Hell
pretty
yeah.
cool.
So it's a little DIY aspect of it. Honestly, as far as like the phenomenon stuff goes, like since it's become such a governmental spectacle, I've kind of lost my flavor for it. Like I don't have the palate that I used to it. So it's like, oh, well, now that my parents are doing it, it's not cool anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
Like,
It's turned into Nickelback.
kind of.
oh my God.
Yeah,
Like
it's
I think
Nickelback.
the occupants are more important. Like what's going on there? Like you know,
Mhm.
is it future us? Is it like just other us? Is I don't know. I don't know what the fuck's
Yeah.
going on.
Because like even though I'm calling it and Brandy's calling it like a total like these are our ships, like I think there is also something drastic to be taken from accounts like Barney and Betty Hill and a lot of these stories, these personal accounts. I don't think that dismissing personal accounts of like the phenomenon is a good thing to do. You know what I mean? It's the personal accounts are what's important, and go ahead.
Every family is going to have people in it that have had weird experiences, like the Bigfoot shit that kind of meets halfway in the road.
Yeah, man.
Some of that shit. So it's and these are legends going back to fucking Stone Age people. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's it's been around for a while, and for us to just poo-poo it because we're modern and so it must not exist because I've been here for 40 years, so I know
Right.
everything.
Well, yeah, and the crafts they're visible. I mean, I don't think that all the videos are fake. I think there's plenty of real sightings of these craft, but at the same time, again, the occupants. Who are the
Well,
occupants?
you got to think too, like how many of these are we actually creating, with ourselves? Because we can create all kinds of things.
Like
even though,
egregores?
yeah, I mean, they've set, even the government has set up, programs to get this group thought going, because they did that with like the paranormal. They were like, okay, can we create ourselves a haunted house? And it was done. And I think it was done in Sweden. And I think this is again where Mark Savage had brought it in with what is his name, Jean Dubois, how this was done and carried out. And they was like, this UFO thing is going to bring down it's just another arm of the government to come in and say, hey, these things are threatening. We're here to protect you, even though we put out the idea so that we could create this for another, backdoor way for us to come in and control you with it. So, I mean, are they like the whole disclosure moment? It's like, okay, are you going to disclose it all? Or, are you really going to tell everybody how it worked, how it went down? Or are you going to, come up with this whole different race? And it's not like we can't create another race. We do it all the time. Your child is another race. You breed different cats, all of it.
Yep, watermelons and bananas. They look different today than they did 100 years ago.
Yep.
Dude, broccoli comes from mustard seeds.
How about that shit?
Yeah.
So does like 4 other plants that we grow, you know, it all comes from like fucked with mustard seeds.
And that's what I'm saying. I mean, you know, you can't say just because, like how you just said, the 432 hertz. Okay, every frequency that everybody is born in on, depending upon the day, may not even be the same frequency. So therefore, you were born in a whole different vibration. Does that make you the same as me? Probably not technically. If you're saying that we have beings that are interdimensional, which means just that they vibrate at a different frequency from us. So
That's an interesting way to look at it.
yeah.
That kind of brings me back down to earth with it, because like for the most part, I've kind of dismissed the idea of like interdimensional, because mostly I'm like, well, what are we talking about here? Non-physical, non-linear time, so that means you can throw out memory and the ego and like a personality and a drive to do things like.
And that's exactly what had me thinking upon it, because I was like, you know, this whole thing about for you to have like an inner peace, for you to be able to align with yourself, you can't, you know, always be in contention with other people. And then you know, that whole thing where if you're mad at somebody, you know, you gave them control. They didn't make you mad. You made yourself mad. And I was like, okay, well, how do you really equate that? Because there has to be more of an interaction. There has to be the static. It's not that the words or the actions, well, the actions do create the static. And this is what you're reacting to. It's like, you know, that static came through, and like, okay, the thing is, you disagreeing with somebody is more like you are reacting to a vibration that is different than your own. So you and them are not existing in this cohabitable area at the same moment. And so I'm thinking, okay, everybody, that would equate to everybody is living in their own world, and we're just all orbiting each other. And you know, sometimes we come in contact, and depending on our attitude, our mood, and what we're bringing in, you're going to get static or you're going to have cohesiveness. And just because you do like that person, there's still going to be some days that vibe is going to be off. So you're not existing technically in the same vibration or the same world.
Yeah, the same dimension.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And I really do like that, because I think a lot of our terminology that we're given has kind of been given superpowers when and the humanity of the story itself, the experience itself, has kind of been removed to, you know, that's kind of the obvious story, right? The dehumanization process.
Yeah, they've devolved us a whole lot. We think we're so evolved that, you know, we can't even understand who we are as a person to be able to understand who the next person is as a part of ourselves. Yeah, it's.
Let me pose this question to you guys. If it is aliens from another planet and they're really that far advanced, what are they up to here? What do you think they're here for?
Well, let me ask you this.
Pushing their nose up against the aquarium.
You don't tap the glass, Scott.
Right. Don't break the what is it? The prime directive.
But if they are that advanced, why are they flying the same shit?
And why are they, around our atmosphere? I mean,
are they not bored by now?
Like, I know we can't understand an alien personality. I accept that wholeheartedly, that we have to think so far outside the box that we ourselves hit another box. But like, there's got to be some level of similarity on a very natural basis, a baseline of some kind that we could kind of relate to in some way. But
sure,
yeah, you know what I mean? We're all we're all under the same physics, right? We're all existing in the same physical universe. So if we are entities, if we are bodies, and we are conscious enough to fly across the stars, then you got to imagine that there's some level of like ego involved, and there's, I don't know. What do you guys think?
what if it's us? I mean, this is what I mean is
Like the Dune
what
thing, there's no aliens, it's just more us out everywhere. I like that.
well, no, that even that like how we exist here physically, but we simultaneously are existing celestially or astrally.
Ah.
So what if that is us? We are their avatar, they are our avatar. You're just looking at yourself, but it's alien to you because you've never seen yourself like that because you're disconnected. You don't know yourself. You have no memory of being this person staring back at you.
That's wild.
The same could be said for everybody just here, though.
Exactly.
So-
But they do say that.
And that goes together, man. I mean, that's kind of like the scale, just a difference in scale, really. It's the Russian doll. And it all goes back to the one, which is interesting because that's kind of how the Egyptian Book of the Dead is framed. And it's like, I am one, now I am two. Now I see myself as four. And it continues on. And it's like, oh, okay. And then it just falls back to the one. That's weird.
Well, it's like the family dynamic.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so it's interesting. I saw a Christian post something recently specifically about the UFOs and how it's all demons and everything. But it's in a way they're right. In a way they're not right. To me, it's like, well, the idea that's being like taken away from us and covered up, whatever they know about this, and they say it's weirder than we could ever imagine. I mean, it's the whole kit and caboodle. It's really not just aliens. We're not looking into aliens. We're looking into the essence of consciousness in ourselves and everything. And I think a good portion, I can say this positively, that I think at least a good portion of the community in the UFO world is kind of starting to be more accepting of that idea. There's some hard-nosed was it nuts and bolts people that don't want anything to do with the consciousness side of it, and it's like eventually you're going to run into some serious brick walls.
Well,
that's that I think that's the issue. Everybody's looking up, looking outside, and it's just like, you know what, you can build it, you can know the math of it, but if you haven't done the same thing inside of yourself, you're going nowhere.
Nice.
You're going nowhere.
Yeah. Well, that can tie into all the sacred rites that a lot of these people, it's like revolving doors with secret societies in a lot of these cases. So it's, a lot of Jesuits, a lot of Freemasons involved with a lot of leaks and stories throughout the years in the UFO community. But that's not paid attention to in the UFO community because as far as they go,
no,
it's
a one-track mind. So I'm like, okay, well, y'all are no better than the people saying that there isn't aliens. You're this one and the same, which means that y'all do not exist without each other.
And I posted something today that kind of relates to that from like the fairy tale and magic point of view. I was kind of like, fairy tales are hidden human history and magic is natural law. And
yes, it is.
These things are literally twisted away from what they are and turned into these fantasies. And part of it is the historical narrative that they mix with, but then they also mix in this thing that's sacred to all of us, that's inside of us, all these archetypes, this story that exists for consciousness, that's the big picture. They twist that into religions and intertwine it with historical characters, and I think that's a big problem. That's why we have so many problems with like literal versus allegorical and stuff like that,
right? Because they want you to see it as being something other than you. They want you
Absolutely.
They want you to deify the outside, because if you were able to deify the inside, then that gave you the power.
Right. Meanwhile, we have like number one hits like Don't Look Up. Right. And we have never forget the wonderful pandemic we had that told everybody to go within and stay inside. It's like all these backwards hidden messages.
When really, if you was just watching SpongeBob, there's the power within, the power within.
Telling you, man, like, so it would have been a cool thing to do to stay in your house for 2 years on your own accord. But once the government tells you you have to do it, it's not cool anymore. It's not. Like, and they're your parents. That's whatever they tell you, takes the cool right out of it.
Well, you're
Right,
right.
you
So
know.
don't look up. So what's
They
everybody
should
doing?
start
Look up.
trying to push firearm sales. I bet you they'd fall through the floor.
Oh, that'd be hilarious. Well, that's the thing. Yeah, hysteria disappears when when things aren't banned. When societies. I mean, not to say that the Wild West was like a picture of what you'd want kids to grow up in today, or so. Not necessarily, but at the same time, when you have the two options, it really just comes down to esoteric versus exoteric. It's almost like the Wild Wild West was the exoteric side of the scale. Like it was just when everything was out in the open and you had lawlessness where there was lawlessness, and you had the rich and wealthy living in their big mansions there. It was just on its face, just like we see in medieval times and all the sword and sandal stories. We see all the groveling peasants, right? And it's just on the face of it. We're just peasants that don't know we're peasants, basically.
Yeah. Fiat
Don't know
currency
we're
is a
peasants.
motherfucker, man.
It's fiat currency. Now we're going to go to digital currency because that's more real than fiat, right?
Oh, well,
Yeah.
they got to have that
Yeah.
Aramon currency.
Yeah, there's no way they could ever fuck with that, right? Like,
But
it's
it makes
amazing
sense.
to me. Oh,
Because-
it totally makes sense.
Yeah, they're like, oh,
Yeah.
the blood is your currency
Mm.
that makes us valuable. They want to make us digital. So what do they do with the currency? They make it digital first.
Yep. That's a great connection because it's currency. It's a current. It's an electrical current that, and I
Flowing.
think that's important. Like there was these pre-feudal societies, and Bach Saga actually goes into this idea too, that every year certain cultures would have coins passed out from the kingdom
Yeah.
down to the people, and these coins would circulate as a current. It would take the current around of commerce, and at the end of that year all the coins would be turned back in, not for the king to gain all the wealth. The coins were invalid at that point, and new coins were made for the next year because the only purpose was the currency, and it had nothing to do with the hoarding of wealth or anything, because obviously you can't eat it, and you can't fill it up, you can't put it in your car or anything, so it's useless. It's literally the purpose of it has again been hijacked and turned into something external. Man, we're talking about aliens, but this is what's important about this being framed as a UFO alien show, because it is, and the rest of it needs to come with it.
Well, no, I mean, but look at how much currency they are siphoning into this UFO thing. So,
Absolutely. A new way to take money, when NASA has kind of lost its rock star fame over the years, big time.
How do you blow it back up? You feed it more current.
In the form, instead of green money, just green people from another planet.
Right? Green people.
And yeah, the green man, right?
Dude,
Ooh, that's
the Green Man is all over the new Lord of the Rings on Amazon. Like the elves have the Green Man up on their armor, the orcs have the Green Man up on their armor. Like, wow, you're both fucking playing dude's game. That's cool.
Wow.
It's interesting, and when you're talking about taking money and the Bitcoin, like a whole coin is worth like a fuckload of money, right? Right. So if you're considering it in as far as like egregores and thought forms go, like the value that a person gives to the US dollar in comparison to what they give to their Bitcoin is considerably more in favor of the Bitcoin. So you're already setting the stage like for people to not care as much about the US dollar, which
absolutely.
I mean, thanks to Nixon with his temporary removal of the gold standard.
Yeah.
Still waiting for that to stop.
Right. Right.
Yeah, that's the real issue, is that we put any stock into paper at all, and we never paid any attention that this silver and gold, which was actually and still is valuable, was replaced by this synthetic, periodic table manipulation. And now we just have these coins that no longer resemble what they originally were for to begin with.
What do you guys think about like the trajectory that this is taking us in terms of the philosophy that they're instilling in the public, in terms of technology and transhumanism and all of that? Like, where do you think it's going to kind of spearhead? Like, what's going to happen because these worlds still are very separate still, they rely on the fact that people are interested in multiple things, obviously, but beyond that, they're not doing the connecting anything yet. They're not bringing all of their AI, all of their meta, all of their, vaccination. Like, that's not really collided with the UFO community directly yet. But I find that there's got to be synergy across all of this. And I think psychedelics may play a part in it, and the extreme like legalization that's happening with psychedelics. And I wonder if that's connected into it. I don't know. What do you guys think?
That may be like a baby step into the new world, because once the mental health and psychological doctors begin to utilize that tool in another method, we might start seeing some different outcomes. And you start playing with the Ivy League and Harvard, the West Coast stuff, Berkeley, and then I'm sure the U.S. government has a bunch of stuff that hasn't been FOIA'd yet on the interactions between psychokinetic energy and psilocybin mushrooms.
Well, let's not forget about they already have been utilizing those ELF waves and the Lily waves, which can make a person feel things, see things, hear things. So you juice somebody up, pump up the waves, you can create a whole different world. So who knows what's going to be real and what's not going to be real.
That's interesting. Everybody's looking at Project Bluebeam from like a holographic point of view.
Yeah, when it can just be,
this will just sideswipe
right
everybody.
Here. Yeah, they're messing with you from the brain out.
Yeah, it's almost like they didn't, it wasn't like this, but if they saw the Matrix, they were like, oh, okay, how can we do that? But they're not going to let us stick something in their head. Well, now that's not true anymore. But because it's like, if they can do it without having to, put something in a vaccine or anything, they can just literally go. Yeah, they go right for
they
for
just
you.
Put the frequencies right on out there. I mean, look at how dependent we are on all the electricity that's running through our house right now, just humming. And all they have to do is let it ride that wave.
Yeah.
So your fans talking to you, your TV's talking to you, the lights talking to you, the wind is talking to you because it's carrying static charge.
Wow. Yeah. We've electrified the world. Not in the way that Tesla wanted, but it's interesting to see so much like there's like a dichotomy going on with Tesla, even where it's like some people think he was like not even real, all this crazy shit. I mean, that's further down the rabbit hole, but like, on the surface level, it's kind of like he was some sort of like, occult dark person or something like that. And
he was a weirdo. There's no
absolutely.
arguing that, but
I think what he was revealing was still absolutely crucial,
Yeah. To be fair, people who are able to go that deep and think that far out of the box are not going to be average as far as their personality traits and stuff go. They're just not, because they think so differently.
Well, that's what's interesting. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, not at all. It's the difference between a schizophrenic who's a millionaire and a schizophrenic who's a pauper on the street. One gets petitioned for plans for businesses, and the other one gets locked up in an asylum and lobotomized.
Right.
So,
or makes planes for the government.
Right.
Yeah. Or paint or tanks or whatever,
He thinks he's Jesus.
Or makes NASA.
Yeah. Well, so that's interesting that you said that too, because it's like Jack Parsons, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of these people, a lot of theosophists, everybody gets a bad name. The connection to Crowley doesn't fucking help at all. But
No.
you know, beyond that, is again, it's like this sacred wisdom coming out, and there's a darkness to it or something that people can't deal with, because of even people that aren't Christian kind of like fall for what is completely a Catholic based fear mongering campaign against like the more natural ways, right?
Well, I think it's just it's been fed into us that we are not accepting of a dark nature within ourselves. And so when we're confronted with it, we reject it. And that's the issue, is because you're always going to be confronted with that. Because I was even thinking about that in relationship to how, you know, the so-called UFO alien abduction thing. It's like, okay, well, if you have shattered yourself, essentially kind of what we have been done, just like, you know, the Horcrux of Harry Potter, you have been traumatized by so many generations that you are just a shard at this point. You would not be able to recognize the many splintered pieces of your own self. So when that self comes back to you to try to unify with you, it would seem like an abduction, because you're going to fear it. You can't face alien to you. It's different, it's ugly, it's deep, it's dark, and you can't, for whatever mental state you're in, accept it as something that you've been, felt, heard, expressed in a physical or non-physical form. You keep continuously pushing it out. So it's like, how deep and dark does it end up being?
Right.
So you're either going to be, you know, recycled, because you're going to eventually have to accept this part of yourself for you to be that one, or we're just going to continually be in this loop.
Right. Wow. Well said. Well said.
Like me and you've seen that loop.
Yeah. And I wonder sometimes, like, again, how much of this phenomenon and what it means and what they could possibly even say about it would relate to a lot of like the deep, scary, unknowable things that you find when you do like trip out or have one of these experiences. You know, it's like how they're bringing the shadow to light, perhaps. Like maybe that's what's happening, but that's something to speculate on. And we'll do this again soon for sure, and we'll ramble on further.
There's there's so many different angles to just try and get any kind of grasp on it from, you know. So from the most violent to Travis Walton to you know, all that stuff, it's so varied that it's, for them to say it's stranger than anything you can understand, that's okay. I'd love to get started, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, well, I think it's about time that we heal this up.
Right. I mean, and it's another angle to say, well, you know, they're just trying to get ahead of something that they can't stop, and they're not trying to they're not trying to help us. They're not trying to slowly roll it out to us. They're just trying to get ahead of something in a way. But it all seems, in every scenario, and this is in the UFO world or in other topics, it all seems like this power structure, it's all bottlenecking, and they are running out of options. And I think the wave is coming. The tidal wave is coming. So yeah,
It's
well,
beautiful.
let's ride this wave. Let's get to the crest. Anyway, this was awesome, and we'll keep it at an hour for now, but we'll develop this as it goes on. You know, I'll probably just bring more specific material that I'm seeing and get you guys' reaction on it. And yeah, so yeah, thank you, Brandy. Thank you, Scott, for joining me. And everybody, thank you for tuning in to another Kill the Narrative. And yeah, we're going to do this more often with a bunch of good people. So stay tuned.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Deep Share Podcast. If you want to hear more, then hit that subscribe button. Follow me on all the social places. And remember, think for yourself, but don't always believe what you think. Till next time.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, that's hysteria. Enough, I get the point.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature. And you will atone.
What do we know? What do we know? If I know what we know, then I can tell you what we know, and if someone else knows, okay? I mean...